President Donald Trump is already waging a war on Iran. It just hasn't gone kinetic yet. Iran is fighting back with harsh words, escalating their rhetorical threats, and in response, Secretary of State Marco Rubio declared this week that Iran possessed a very serious threat to the United States. This angry rhetoric back and forth is dimming hopes that Thursday's talks will result in a deal to avert a United States strike on Iran. But even before that happens, the White House imposed new economic sanctions that are meant to choke off the new remaining income streams for the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps. And once again, Iran is pushing back by saying that they've marked American bases in the region for annihilation. But do their missiles have the range? And can they even strike targets in Europe? Speaking of Europe, Trump is furious at Britain for forbidding the United States to use the strategic bomber base on the island of Diego Garcia for an immediate strike on Iran, using a flimsy excuse of the technicality in a decades-old treaty. Nevertheless, the American military is ready to launch an attack, and the negotiations are going nowhere. Now, it's President Trump's turn to make the decision. Welcome to Boots on the Ground. I'm your host, Yair Pinto, bringing you the whole truth about what's happening in Israel and the Middle East. Hundreds of American military aircrafts are already in the region, along with powerful naval forces and air defensive assets. But as of Thursday afternoon, the diplomatic solution is still officially on the table. Another round of talks took place in Geneva earlier today, which reportedly included a presentation of Iran's new framework, which still does not meet the American demands. Although officials are saying that things may still change, Israel's intelligence echelon assesses that the gaps are too large to be narrowed. And meanwhile, a regime-affiliated channel published a video this week listing the American bases in the Middle East that are under surveillance. So, does Iran's ballistic missiles and their arsenal have the range and the power to threaten these bases? And what can Israel and the United States do in response? We will take a closer look. And in related news, the tension between the United States and Iran is shaking the oil markets. And the Americans announced the sanctions against those illegally trading Iranian oil, as well as the so-called shadow fleet of tankers that move their oil around the world. So, today, we will bring you the target map for the scenario of an all-out confrontation in the Middle East against Iran, including likely targets for strikes, the overall strategy, and the global risks. But while all eyes are on Iran, Israel continues to deal with two other arenas, Lebanon and the Gaza Strip. Hezbollah members are angry this week, but not only at Israel. Against the backdrop of Israel's concerns about a unification of forces between Hezbollah and Iran and a possible attack on Israel, a source in the terrorist organization Hezbollah told AFP, the news agency, there is no intention to intervene in a limited attack scenario. However, he warned against any attempt to harm the supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. And with that in mind, we will also bring you the assessment of the terrorist organization's missile fire capabilities against Israel. We will also bring you step by step how the American dismantling of the Hamas terrorist organization will happen. And yesterday, the process was revealed in a single document and is part of the second stage of the ceasefire agreement. The United States proposes that Hamas gradually disarm while international forces are deployed and the new Palestinian police force is established inside the Gaza Strip. However, Hamas wants to build up the existing police forces which it controls. And furthermore, Hamas is rapidly taking over the civilian administration in the Gaza Strip right under everybody's nose, and we'll bring you those details in today's report. And in related news, Hamas has a new method of smuggling weapons and ammunition and other contraband into the Gaza Strip. They're abandoning the traditional routes through trucks and tunnels and, with the help of cells in the Sinai Peninsula in Egypt, using containers that sail beneath the sea's surface and exploit the natural sea currents. And at the same time, it is carrying out a diversion operation using smuggling drones that are launched towards the Israel-Egypt border. And meanwhile, a dramatic investigation by the Telegraph media portal reveals that Russia and Belarus are using experts from the Middle East to dig secret tunnels under the Polish border in order to flood Europe with migrants and sow chaos as part of a brutal hybrid war against the West. There is reason to believe that these tunnels were built with the assistance of experts from Hamas, from Hezbollah, and perhaps others. And we'll take a closer look at this. I'm Yair Pinto, and this is your Boots on the Ground just before the weekend edition, in which we'll bring you the whole truth about what's happening in Israel on day 873 of the war against Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis in Yemen, the Shiite militias in Iraq, and all the other armed groups in this region that are operating under the control of the Revolutionary Guards Corps in Iran, which is the head of the crumbling axis of evil in the Middle East. And a moment before we start, I want to call on you to keep spreading the truth. And if you want to know more about life in Israel, and not lies that are funded by Qatar, look for me, Yair Pinto, and for my friend Mati Shoshani, for TBN Israel on social media platforms, and make sure to hit the subscribe here on this YouTube channel. And this week, 12 American F-22 aircrafts landed here in Israel as part of preparations for a possible strike on Iran. And at the same time, American ships are rapidly maneuvering between the Persian Gulf, the Arabian Sea, and the Red Sea. This is not just showing the flag, it is serious preparations for an active shooting war. So, the question is, will the negotiations in Geneva succeed in stopping this war from starting, or is it already too late for that? What do you think? In recent days, President Trump has shifted into a higher gear. In speeches and in closed-door conversations, he signals he has no patience for Tehran's tricks. People around him describe him as someone looking for magic words that are not coming, and he defines Iran's leadership as bluffers. And at the same time, Secretary of State Marco Rubio declared this week that Iran is a very serious threat to the United States, not only because of the nuclear issue, but because of their arsenal of ballistic missiles and the terrorist threat it is cultivating. So this is even against the American homeland. In high-level discussions, the White House Special Envoy Steve Witkoff is reported to have said that any future nuclear agreement will not have sunset clauses, meaning Washington won't sign a deal that expires in a few years, but rather, any agreement needs to be binding for the rest of your lives. And at the same time, Witkoff marked two critical issues: uranium enrichment and the existing stockpile that they have, which is being discussed in order to magnitude of 10,000 kilograms. This is the amount that they think they have of enriched uranium at low and also at high grade levels. So facing this, Iran attempted to propose a new framework in Geneva, but according to diplomatic sources, it is not much different from their previous position, which the Trump administration has already rejected as inadequate. This has led to speculation that these talks have run their course, and it's time to try something different. Israel's intelligence echelon is not surprised, as it has been saying for weeks now that the gaps between the minimum Washington can accept and the maximum that the regime is willing to offer are too big. However, the Ayatollah regime still has some cards to play, including a double game of public diplomacy. They like to make public statements that make them sound reasonable, mature, and pragmatic, trying to convince the global general and the public that they are the adults in the room, while the Americans are the ones racing towards a war that nobody else wants, except possibly Israel. This is according to them, of course. Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi presented Geneva as an opportunity for a fair and just agreement. He even hinted that any new agreement will be better than the previous one and will ensure the nuclear program remains for peaceful purposes forever. But at the same time, the political and the parliamentary leadership sent a sharp warning to the Americans. If you strike in the middle of the negotiations, you will take a hard punch and regret it. Parliament Speaker Muhammad Bakr Ghalibaf added that all options are on the table. And to make a quick comment on this, The whole world can see that Iran doesn't have any options, so that table he's talking about is actually empty of anything, and he's fooling no one but himself with these kind of talks. And other Iranian officials have made similar threats, and to their credit, the Revolutionary Guards are trying to back it all up. They held drills this week that simulated repelling an attack from the sea and launching a retaliatory strike using drones and ballistic missiles to hit simulated American bases. The American military doesn't seem to be very concerned about all of this, but maybe they should be more concerned. What do you think? Let me know in the comments section. And speaking of the Americans, the United States imposed a new round of sanctions this week against more than 30 individuals, companies, and also vessels involved in illegally selling Iranian oil and in supporting missile programs and advanced weapons productions. The sanctions also focus on 12 additional vessels of Iran's so-called shadow fleet, which is a network of tankers and shell companies that distinguish the source of oil and move it to foreign markets. And in Washington, they say that this is a central funding source for internal repression, regional terror proxies, and weapons development. In addition, sanctions were imposed on procurement networks that are connected also to solid fuel for missiles, including components like sodium perchlorate, and on actors tied to producing engines for drones and to develop other industries that are evolving in the arms dealing of Iran, all their military capabilities. So to expand, while the world is talking about Geneva, Iran is accelerating the loading of oil and gas tankers at an unusual pace. According to shipping traffic tracking and other data, within a few days, about 20 million barrels of oil were loaded from Karag Island, almost 3 times the usual volumes. So the Ayatollah regime is trying to get as much product out the door as possible ahead of a possible confrontation, a naval blockage, or damage to the infrastructure. And at the same time, everyone understands that the global weak point is the Strait of Hormuz, a passage through which a huge portion of the world's seaborne oil and tankers sail every single day of the year, and any disruptions there will immediately jolt the global economy. Knowing this, the Pentagon has deployed massive forces in order to try and keep any conflict short and minimize the disruption. And according to data from the Institute of National Security Studies, the think tank in Tel Aviv, the number of American fighter aircrafts in the region has crossed 250. This includes dozens of stealth aircrafts of the F-35s and F-22 types, and also additional aircrafts like A-10s, F-16s, and F-15S. And if you add what is positioned in Europe, the number reaches about 350 fighter aircrafts that can be used in a potential attack. These fighters are supposed to, by many people, to be also including refueling tanks, also cargoes, and also electronic warfare capabilities. This is according to all the sources that are involved in this topic in this region. This includes also, very important, command and control aircrafts that can make sure everything is coordinated. And at sea, the Americans have deployed a massive armada, including 2 aircraft carriers, 3 littoral combat ships, 13 destroyers, as many as 3 submarines armed with Tomahawk cruise missiles, and various support ships. These ships are maneuvering rapidly between the Red Sea, the Persian Gulf, and the Arabian Sea, while one, the USS Delbert Black, was docked in Eilat, the southern Israeli city, for several weeks and is now back out on patrol. Other forces, primarily from Britain and France, have also been deployed to this region, likely at the request of their local allies, in order to defend against possible missiles attacks from the Islamic Republic of Iran. Speaking of which, if you're watching this, you love Israel and you care about what's happening here. So right now, especially with everything that's going on in this region, the war, the threats from Iran, tourism being down, small Israeli businesses are feeling it in a real way. That's why we want to tell you about something that we personally recommend. It's called ArtzaBox. We know the team behind it. We know the heart behind it. And we've seen the impact that they're making here on the ground. especially to local businesses. Arza creates beautiful, curated, seasonal boxes filled with handcrafted products from Israeli artisans, small family businesses all across this country. So every box is themed around a biblical location and delivered straight to your door. So when you order, you're not just buying something beautiful, you are directly blessing Israel. And right now, they've just launched their newest seasonal release, the Jordan River Box. This one is incredible. The very place where Jesus was baptized. And through Arza, you can feel like what it would be to be standing here in Israel. So the box is designed to bring this same experience into your home in a tangible way. It's immersive, it's faith-centered, and it connects you and your family to the land where Jesus walked, Israel. And these are seasonal limited boxes. Once this box closes, it doesn't come back. So if you want to stand with Israel in a real, practical way and deepen your connection to your faith, make sure to go to artzabox.com/TBNIL. Again, that's Artza, ARTZABOX.com/TBNIL. Make sure to use the coupon code TBNIL for an extra 15% off of your subscription. Okay? Again, artzabox.com/TBNIL. Insert the TBNIL code for an extra 15%. Make sure to order today before it runs out. And now, we're getting back into the news because within all the preparations for a possible confrontation, a political logistical variable has come up that is troubling Washington. The island of Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean is on the headlines now. And in recent days, Britain has denied American military forces access to the base at Diego Garcia, citing the Chagos Islands, the agreement that they had, and the transfer of sovereignty to Mauritius. President Trump is reportedly furious with Britain over this decision, and in Parliament in London, it was said that the process of ratifying the agreement was temporarily delayed for talks with the Americans. This is not a small problem, as the base in Diego Garcia gives the United States Air Forces the ability to hit Iran on another front that is crucial to the timing and the sustainability of any campaign. And amidst all of this, Iran is also running a focused psychological warfare campaign. Channels that are identified with the regime are disturbing videos that are showing American bases under surveillance. They point to Camp Arfijan in Kuwait, El Dafra, the airbase in the United Arab Emirates, Jabal Ali Port, Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia, Ali El Salem Air Base in Kuwait, Camp Lemunir in Djibouti, and also the Taiman Airfield in Israel. The goal is clear: to create a sense that the entire Middle East is within firing range and to expand the target list beyond Israel. That brings us to Iran's ballistic missile arsenal. And according to data provided by researchers at the Institute of National Security Studies, this is a think tank in Tel Aviv, in Israel, Iran has a diverse arsenal, and part of it reaches ranges that also threaten Europe. This is what they have now. The Shihab 3 ranges between 1,300 and 2,000 kilometers with a 750 to a 1,000 kilogram warhead and accuracy to within a radius of 1 kilometer. Imad ranges between 1,700 and 2,500 kilometers with accuracy in a radius of about 50 meters. Sajil ranges between 2,000 and 2,400 kilometers with solid fuel, rapid operation, and maneuver capabilities. Haj Qassam ranges between 1,400 and 1,800 kilometers. It launches within minutes and is described as a hypersonic missile that can reach extreme speeds. Kuramashar already enters ranges of 2,000 to 3,000 kilometers and can carry up to 1,800 kilograms of explosives with maneuver capabilities and high speed. And facing this, Israel and the United States are building a coordinated, multi-layer defense shield against all these missiles. So, in the outer layer, long-range interceptions outside the atmosphere with Arrow 3 and additional layers with Arrow 2, also with THAAD, the American anti-rocket defense systems, and the SM-3 interceptors, also from American ships. And in the medium range, we have the David Sling. In short, we have Iron Dome on land, we have the Naval Dome on the SAR-6 ships, and we have the Barak MX systems to protect infrastructure and vessels in the sea. And alongside all of this, Israel has integrated a new laser layer, or a TAN, for cheap and rapid interception of rockets, mortars, and also drones. So if a campaign opens, it will not be only an attack, it will be also in the interception war at a high price, and we are prepared for everything that's coming at us. However, the question that returns in every situation assessment is, was this war already started? Where is the deployment? There are warnings, there are drills, there are sanctions, and there is an oil market that is entering emergency mode, while in Geneva, the documents are still not nearing a meeting point. In Israel, they assess that if Trump chooses a strike, even a focused one, it will not be small, while the message to Tehran and its proxies has already been delivered. Any harm to Israel will be answered with force. And in the coming hours, we will know whether the talks in Geneva produce a breakthrough or only provide official justification for a first blow. And the question leading us into the next report is very simple. When hundreds of aircrafts are already in the region and the destroyers are on the track, what will be the trigger that lights everything on fire? We don't know, but here at TBN Israel, we'll be here to report about it. So keep spreading the truth, share this content with as many people as possible, and of course, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, so that you stay tuned to what's happening here, boots on the ground style. And now, we are switching our focus to Israel's northern front. A Hezbollah source told AFP this week that if there is a limited strike against Iran, they do not intend to intervene, but he immediately added that harming the supreme leader Ali Khamenei, in his view, is a red line. So, why is Hezbollah drawing lines now? And what happens if those lines are crossed? The IDF is preparing for a scenario in which a strike on Iran will prompt conflict in other places as the regime pressures its proxy forces to attack Israel as a distraction. The IDF has been getting out ahead of this problem for months now. The IDF has been hitting Hezbollah in order to reduce their capability to hit Israel, either on Iranian orders or on their own initiative. And at the same time, diplomatic messages are being sent to Lebanon's internationally recognized government that if there is fire from the north as part of a conflict with Iran, Israel will not settle for a pinpointed response against the organization. Lebanese sources say that the warnings have included threats to hit civilian infrastructure as well, up to and including Beirut's international airport. But the government in Beirut does not have much capability to act on these warnings. It is trying to stabilize a country after years of crisis, facing an armed organization that is still the dominant force on the ground. However, within the Shiite community in Lebanon, which is Hezbollah's base, there is fatigue accompanied with a sense of economic collapse and tens of thousands of displaced people who had to flee their villages in the southern part of Lebanon trying to camp out in Beirut. And all of this is feeding a growing sense of anger within the Shiite community in Lebanon, not at Israel, but at Iran. And according to sources in this community, they feel they were abandoned despite talking heavy blows on behalf of the Iranians, and because they are part of the resistant axis. And there are even rumors that the Iranians sold Hezbollah and passed information about senior figures. This is setting up a dilemma for the Hezbollah Secretary General Naim Qassem, who must choose between betraying his Iranian masters, to whom he owes his position and even his entire existence, and betraying his own country of Lebanon by dragging it into a destructive conflict to defend Iran. The worst part for Qassem is that even if he does attack Israel, he won't have much to do with it, because analysts estimate that Hezbollah today has only 20 to 30% of the capability that it had before October 6, 2023. That is still enough to cause damage to Israel, but this would prompt retaliation by the IDF that Hezbollah could do little to defend against. So, to sum up, One decision in Tehran can turn Lebanon from an arena that is on the bench right now into an active front. And the question that is hovering over the northern parts of Israel is simple. If a strike on Iran moves forward, will Hezbollah really stay out, or will it try to prove it is still here at any price? And here at TBN Israel, we will be here to report about every development moving forward. But if you want to know what's really happening in Israel every day, on a day-to-day life, look for me, Yair Pinto, on social media, look for Mati Shoshani, and make sure to hit the subscribe button so that you never miss any episode of Boots on the Ground. So keep spreading the truth, help us fight fake news, fake information that is funded by the Muslim Brotherhood, by Qatar, and other organizations that have an agenda to hijack your minds. So now we're switching our focus once again to the Gaza Strip, because this week unusual movement was identified again off the southern coast of Gaza. At the same time, monitoring systems have picked up smuggling UAVs that were headed towards Israel from Egypt. Hamas is using a new method that tries to bypass the eyes from above and rebuild capabilities beneath the surface of the water in the Mediterranean Sea. So, if this is happening now, who really controls the ground, and who is going to disarm Hamas in practice? What do you think about this? Behind the scenes, an American document was revealed that lays out step by step the disarmament of Hamas. In the second phase of the ceasefire, rockets and explosives are supposed to be removed into monitored storage facilities, alongside a Hamas commitment not to develop or manufacture or import more weapons. After that comes dealing with the tunnels, while only at the end moving to the personnel weapons phase, when Hamas seeks to keep some of it for self-defense. If the defense establishment will be involved in this, they noted that this is a red line, especially for Israel. So according to the position that was heard in this discussion, the only weapons that can remain in the hands of a Palestinian force are pistols, and only in the hands of the new Palestinian police force, not Hamas. And alongside the disarmament document, a planned move is the diplomatic move of the International Stabilization Forces. That includes troops from Indonesia, while Egypt and Jordan are working on training a Palestinian police force. An online registration inside the Gaza Strip has also opened, and thousands have already registered with name screenings and background checks before training and deployment. But alongside the vision for a Gaza clean of terror, signs appear that Hamas is building a shadow government, and commanders from the military wing are being placed into key civilian roles. At the same time, the organization is strengthening international and internal intelligence and increasing surveillance at sensitive sites, including hospitals. And on the ground, they also talk about new appointments in districts and in the offices that are responsible for taxes and security. And within all of this, the assessment on the ground is that Hamas is preparing for another confrontation and carrying out a reorganization at the top, including appointments in intelligence, weapons productions, and propaganda. They are also continuing to smuggle weapons, but not by traditional routes of trucks and tunnels. According to police reports, the new method involves containers with adjusted weight being thrown into the sea about 5 miles off the coast of the Sheikh Zayed in Sinai. They sail beneath the surface of the sea, exploiting the sea noise and the waves and trying to evade the radar. With the help of a current at a speed of 2 knots and under the cover of darkness, the containers reach Deir el-Balach and also Khan Yunis within 10 to 14 hours. The operation is run by several cells in Sinai, in the Maritime Middle, and in the Gaza Strip, in the Gaza City, and at the same time, a diversion is activated with smuggling UAVs to keep the monitoring and the interception systems busy. According to the information, one of the materials that is being smuggled this way is the HTPB, which is a component for solid rocket fuel, which is a clear sign of an attempt to rebuild strategic capabilities even under constraints. This brings us to another story about Hamas's possible involvement in smuggling, but this time it's thousands of miles away, in Eastern Europe. Police in Poland say that they've intercepted hundreds of illegal migrants, mainly from Afghanistan and Pakistan, trying to enter Polish territory through tunnels built under the border between their country and their neighboring Belarus. This is an ally of Russian President Vladimir Putin. In the last year, 4 smuggling tunnels have been discovered, and in footage from inside one of the tunnels, a narrow excavation is seen with concrete supports to prevent collapse, and also cramped crawling spaces. Polish authorities said this demonstrates a very high level of expertise. Other sources in Poland claimed in talks with the Western officials that this is the work of experts from the Middle East. And furthermore, according to analysts by military experts, only a limited number of organizations are known for this know-how. And amongst the names that came up were Hamas, Hezbollah, the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and also ISIS. So this is also possibly including some Kurdish factions. But at this stage, there is no definitive public confrontation of who built these tunnels, and therefore the claim remains at the level of suspicion and assessment. The broader context is the weaponization of migrants. Polish officials argued that Belarus, in coordination with Moscow, is operating smuggling routes to create political and economic pressure on European countries that support Ukraine. Poland has already built fences along 200 kilometers of its borders with Belarus, with about 300 cameras. But now the challenge is going underground, and at the same time additional components of hybrid warfare are also mentioned: cyber attacks, explosions and fires in Europe, and even allegations about smuggling balloons that are launched towards Lithuania that caused aviation disruptions. So what do you think about all of this? Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think Hamas is digging tunnels in Europe? I'm Yair Pinto, and I say it's time to pray about the situation. This is the best advice I have for any complicated issue. So keep spreading the truth, share, follow us, pray for wisdom to our leaders, to your leaders. Pray for all the forces that are deployed next to us here. Pray for wisdom, pray for peace, pray for God to intervene. Let's also pray for our enemies. This is a hard one. Let's pray for them to have a change of heart and not succeed in their plans to destroy all of us. Let's pray for those that are under attack, if it's the people of Israel, if it's the people of Gaza, if it's the people of Lebanon and Syria. They have a hard life because they're under control by terrorism, or us here, we are under attack of terrorists all the time. God has a plan. Let's pray that His will be done on this earth. So keep praying for the peace of Jerusalem.
Hello, this is Mati here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yair Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN Israel today online at tbn.org/Israel. Thank you.